Hello. Good evening.
Evening.
Good evening. Yeah, it's working.
Well,
Yeah. So no intro. Yeah, sorry. Uh, we
Don't apologize for something that I should be apologizing for.
well we could sing, but
Mea culpa, mea culpa. We can sing. We can sing. Absolutely. What do you want to sing, Omar?
let's not sing. No, let's not do that. Nah, let's just not do that. But
Good.
my name is Omar Oomzer, and below me is the one and only.
This Dr. Random Mole who is just enjoying his coffee. And next to me, I'm gonna guess.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct.
that's me, yes.
Oh, that,
I'm Joachim Guthixian Scalings, and I am, I guess, the second co-host today. And we're here to talk you through this game of Hearts of Iron 4 together.
Yeah. So
and
Jochem is the new value intern,
That's right, yes.
and he's also I've been told a very good player in Hearts of Iron. I mean, he's better than
Well,
Angus
from
probably.
experience, sure, but I mean,
that exactly. That's the whole.
I've
That's the
yet to
whole.
prove my competitive skills. I think we'll do that later.
Nice. So, I mean, first question: what does it mean to be a good player at Hearts of Iron? What does it even mean? Is it something that you can play competitively in that sense? Or
Well, definitely, yeah, but the competitive game is totally different than being good at the single-player experience, since the AI, although it provides a decent challenge for casual players, is very easy to game around. And if you know exactly how to prepare, because the game is all about preparing and about thinking ahead, then against the AI, it's almost impossible to lose, in my opinion. But against the player, it's totally different, since they know how to counter you, they know how to react to you dynamically. And I know that there's a competitive scene for it. There's even special maps made by the modding community, which are balanced to be fair in a competitive setting. So yeah, I mean, it's it's uh, it's a tough skill to master. It takes definitely several hundred hours, I would say.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I've played this game for over 300 hours, and I don't think I'm anywhere near the level Jochem is or any of
Oh,
the competitive players are.
don't exaggerate my skill level. Most of my playtime comes from casual games anyway, so I
Yeah, but
figure that I'm
I'm the person who loses from AI. So,
okay. Well, that doesn't happen to me either. So I guess I am a bit more skillful than.
but let me just switch into the game. Let's see,
Yeah, exactly.
because well, this is Hearts of Iron. Wow, yeah. I'm playing with most of the DLCs except for the latest one, which is Battle of the Bosporus. Don't call me noob, Aris. That's not fair. You haven't even touched this game ever. You refuse to play Paradox games, so you
No,
have
nor
no
will he. Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't have any rights in this stream.
You can call me a noob. When it comes to this game, I can absolutely be called a noob. I'm really interested in this because as both of you have quite a few. Whether you call yourselves experts or not, you have quite a few hours in this game, and I've always been really fascinated by this game. But I've never played it, and I've always been fascinated because I really like paradox style games, games based on the Cloud Switch engine, as we already talking about just before the stream. And I really wonder how it works with something that is much more contained to a couple of years. And yeah, I'm just really curious to see how this stands up as a World War II era or well, interbellum kind of era game. So
It does great in some respects, but in others it kind of falls behind. Since, as you say, it only takes a couple of years instead of, for example, in Victoria 2, where you can play for 100 years on. But I would say that it's mostly because the setting is more condensed and because the game just starts to slow down tremendously after the 1940s.
okay,
But it's
Yeah,
only new features.
yeah, I think that's a big difference. For example, for like Angus, you've played Crusader Kings 3 a lot, and other games as well, like European Universals, and those are kind of different games because I think the narrative from World War Two is so much more known that's kind of hard to make a loose game around that. So, for example, Crusader Kings is kind of loose, as in you start from a certain point where there's no real narrative or historical narrative to it. You can just do anything you like. Whereas,
yeah,
well, with Hearts of Iron, I mean, World War Two, everyone knows what happened in World War Two, so it's kind of, yeah.
yeah,
And I think
and
that,
exactly that's it, Omar. I mean, you always say with paradox games, history stops as soon as you press start, which we will
Yeah.
be soon be doing, by the way. But that is a little bit less so here, then, right?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think it's
it's
also
still the
because
case, but yeah, different.
um, in this game, it's also that everyone in World War II is a known person. And in CK2, for example, most of the vessels in Africa, for example, are fictional characters, or at least fictionalized characters. And here, since the entire setting is completely set in stone, and we know from day to day how the events of history unfolded, it's a lot more difficult to create this mechanic of history that you see in CK3 and CK2, where a lot of gaps have to be filled in where history just simply doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I think we're talking here right away, Jochem, about what's at the core of your internship, right? And that is what if scenarios, alternative histories, and how they sort of mimic processes of real history, right? And that you're gonna do that. You're gonna look at this and work with this through
That's right.
Hearts of Iron. Yeah. Which, by the way, right now on our website, interactivepast.com, if you want to know more about that, there's a wonderful blog post by Jochem right now that you can go read.
But let's get into the game, I think.
Yes, let's get into the game. So,
So-
you already
so-
told me we are
Yes.
going to be playing as
Yeah.
Lucia.
Yeah, so the point in Hearts of Iron, which is kind of different, I think, from, for example, Crusader Kings, that there are certain countries which have a focus tree. We'll explain it later. But these are like the countries where Paradox themselves have made contents for. So, of course, you have the big players. I mean, it makes sense to have a game about World War II and have like France, United States, and Germany and Italy in there. And because the game is about war, I kind of want to play a country which can declare war earlier or easier in the game, which is Italy, because we don't want to play Germany, because, I mean, I just don't want to play Germany. So play
Yeah.
Italy, yeah.
Not
In a conflict immediately, right? So the colonial war against Ethiopia was going on in the
Yeah, so it's
1930s.
it's already started by now, which also makes sense. But you can see here for like most of the countries, there's like a description with a brief history. I mean, if you look at Netherlands, we have Hendrikus Colijn. So Netherlands also has its own focus tree inside the game, but there's certain. Okay, Aris asked if I can put Jochem a bit louder. Let me just quickly do that because I can. Just quickly.
Yeah, so my recording equipment isn't exactly top of the line, so
no, that's but Ares, by the way, is working on that. So you'll be sent a snowball, a blue snowball, sometime soon. So that's
so hopefully for the next stream I'll be a lot more clear then.
hopefully,
We
yeah,
fixed
for
the light,
sure.
so that's step one, right?
So
I mean, there's light. All right.
So this game has some annoying things. First of all, you can't move the thing around with WASD.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
annoying. It's parallax, but you can only do it with the arrow keys or with your mouse. And like when I turn over to my second screen to change something in the settings of the sound or OBS, it like keeps moving. It's so annoying.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Those
sure.
small UI things I hate. But this is a game. I mean, we've played Paradox games before, so this is kind of the same. You have the Iron Man mode, which we're not gonna take because we're only gonna play this probably for one stream.
Because we're not Korean.
Yeah, we're probably gonna play this one for like one stream, so it doesn't really matter. I'm just gonna like also just keep it at regular or something. So if Iron Man mode also enables the achievements. So if you want achievements in Steam, you need to play Iron Man mode and regular. But I usually just don't care because I never win.
Oh, I think it might have also been interesting to explain what historical AI focuses are, since there's a setting that basically disables the alternate history settings that Paradox has made for Germany and Italy and the Soviet Union. And if you
just
check that
every
box,
country, yeah.
Yeah, so we talked a bit about this before when we were doing a bit of a test stream, Omar and I. Germany, for example, in the base game has an alternate history section of their focus tree where they can remove the big mustache guy whose name I won't name on the stream and replace him with a variety of different groups. So, for example, they can restore the Kaiser, but they can also become basically post-war Germany's Democratic Republic or communist. And if you check that box and it doesn't happen, but now there's a possibility that the AI might try to change history in of itself.
Yeah, so this is all based around this focus tree. I think if you...
Yeah, it really doesn't have any of that, but it's still
has some, but if you like look really back into the interactive past websites, I wrote about this all the way back in May when I wrote my review of the La Resistance DLC of Hearts of Iron. But the idea of Hearts of Iron is, in contrast to other Paradox games, that there are certain national focuses you can complete. So, for example, we're now playing Italy. My scroll button is still broken, but it's so annoying. So we can, yeah, it's so annoying. Like when I zoom in.
Is your mouse broken, or is literally just is it software broken?
No, my mouse literally is broken. Yeah,
Wow.
it's a known problem for the mouse I had. Vincent had the same problem. He told me. But these are like, they're not really tags as in you do in Civ, but it's kind of just a bit similar, as in you have to like progress through this tree, so you can't just
like
go.
mission tree before, if you know what those are.
Yeah, so you can't like really go directly there, but you need to like follow a logical route, and these.
So can you zoom in a little bit? I'm sorry that the scroll wheel is not working, but
I can't zoom in any more than this, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. Can you zoom in a tiny bit more, because then I can read it? Because otherwise I won't be able to read it.
I can't really zoom anything
No,
anymore.
this is fine. This is fine. So if we're talking here. So the very first start is, well, we were just talking about Ethiopian war. So now, we are
at war with Ethiopia already.
Yeah, and part of the focus tree is that there's going to be the logistics of organizing this colonial war.
Yeah, for example.
Yeah, so building railroads and infrastructure in Eritrea specifically, since the Italian colonial army really relied on the so-called Askaris in Eritrea to fight against the Ethiopians, since Eritrea had been an Italian colony since, I would say the 1890s, but it might be a bit earlier. And they have been trying to incorporate Ethiopia into that bigger Italian East Africa for quite a while. They had a war before as well against Ethiopia sometime in the 1900s, I think, in which they both famously used, I think Italy used napalm against Ethiopia, if I remember correctly, and Ethiopia used special...
poison gas, I think it was.
Yeah.
Ethiopia used poison gas against.
No, the Italians. They couldn't win, so they used poison gas.
I was like, yes, exactly. Okay. So basically...
They did use that in return, though. Ethiopia used special expanding bullets, so once you were hit by them, they would explode like it was a shotgun shell. And those were also in violation of the Conventions of War. So both parties were using illegal weapons against each other, but of course, Italy being the invading army was a bit more to blame than Ethiopia.
Yeah, and I'm also gonna just morally, from the benefit of the 21st century, say that, you know,
maybe the Italians,
exploding shells, you know, bad, but you know, poison gas, a bit worse.
Bit worse.
Bit worse. Okay, so maybe just for my my understanding here, also from the historical point of view, why are they fighting right now in Ethiopia? They're fighting because there's, like, as we can see right now on the map, and that's what I always love about Paradox games, is it becomes so. It's both a downside of Paradox games and a big upside. It's super geographical, so we can see right away there is this tiny sliver of Italy there, in basically on the you know the what do you call it?
Somalia,
Gulf,
basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, sure. And Ethiopia is sort of wedged in there. And can you also zoom in a tiny bit more? What's the other country? There's a bit of United Kingdom there and a bit of France.
Okay. Yeah. So this
That's
is
Djibouti.
This is Ethiopia, and this is we're here. We have Yemen.
Yemen, yeah.
So I'm not really sure what happened here. As in, I think Ethiopia was like the last non-colonial part of Africa, but I think Joachim knows that better than I do, because
it's kind of thing you do.
Find a specific reason why they declared war on Ethiopia, but I know that Italy was keen on abolishing slavery in their colonies, or at least making the effort to proclaim that they were abolishing slavery in, for example, Eritrea. So their justification may have been to end the long-standing practice of slavery that was practiced by the Ethiopian monarchy, since they were also kind of struggling to get their bureaucracy to accept abolishing the practice altogether. But it involved a lot of geopolitics between the United Kingdom and Italy, since
I could see that. Yeah, That's what you already see straight up, right? Is especially if you then zoom in and you see a tiny sliver of the United Kingdom there, and a big, of course, the big Nile section of the United Kingdom. We call it the United Kingdom, but these are all, of course, colonial.
Yeah, it's one of the, I would say, many faults with the base game is that they don't have colonial tags. A lot of expansions, a lot of mods do have
Yeah.
colonial countries in the colonial regions, but here it's just that they function as colonial provinces, which do interact with the resistance mechanic that Omar talked about. So if there's colonial unrest, then it can be simulated in the game.
Okay. So if you look like, for example, at the United Kingdom, so this is the entire. So all the green stuff is the United Kingdom, and the blue stuff is the stuff they're allied with or in a faction with. So in this case, that's the allies. But in this part in history, it's just Commonwealth, as in, I mean, Canada,
But
British
India
Raj.
is a colonial tag here. So since India was so big, I think that they couldn't justify just making it all the United Kingdom. And it needs, if a tag is on the map, it also has its own AI. So the British Raj can fight independently from the United Kingdom.
Yeah, so there, for example, the Canadians can become fascist and join the Axis. That's actually an achievement in this game. But you can see here their dominion of a foreign power, which is the United Kingdom. So they've also, so there's like a colonial thing to it. For example, the Netherlands has it as well. They're like a subject. Dutch East Indies are a subject state or integrated puppet to the Netherlands.
Yeah, I just want to point out, and I'm gonna not do this the whole time, but it's whenever like gaming vernacular meets history, like real world history, particularly this part of history, like Canada becoming a fascist state being an achievement. I mean, you just end up saying such weird things, right? But it's not that we think this would be an achievement. This is like a Steam achievement.
Yeah, but in Hearts of Iron's base game in particular, becoming fascist just means appointing a fascist minister, waiting 6 months to get a coup, and then you're fascist.
Yeah.
But in mods, they made this much more complicated, as it rightfully should be, to be honest.
All right. Anyhow, I think all of this is super fascinating.
I mean, the Soviet Union, if they appoint, which I guess is Wikipedia's most easily found Russian fascist for 6 months, he can make the entire Soviet Union fascist somehow.
Okay.
Which is, kind of a circle.
It makes sense mechanically, since you want all countries to have that option if you're going to make it a mechanic in the game in the first place, but historically it makes no sense whatsoever.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It just mimics that one very famous fascist country, and it's the German Reich, in which this sort of was the thing that happened. But
they needed a universal mechanic that fits all countries, I think.
Yeah, I know exactly. That is a very good point, Jochem. Thanks. That is a very good. It is hard, especially because we do know so much about the details here of all these countries that none of the fascist or Axis powers has a single historical trajectory. Just as, of course, none of the allies had a single historical trajectory or dynamic behind them. It's good.
But it has to be gamified nonetheless, so that's why they implement it that way.
Yeah. No, very good points. All right. Take us a bit more into the mechanics here, because
so there's lots of mechanics here. So this is like the game. It took me at least 100 or 100 hours to actually just be able to play without looking everything up. Because there's.
I see the dials up there. Like I see manpower. That's
let me just move you over a little bit in OBS because we're kind of in the way. Of course we are.
The goal for today and for Omar in particular is just to beat Ethiopia. If you can pull that off, then I think
we've won the game.
Yeah.
Let me just put myself.
Mobius says the Angus index for worst ways to die. Poison gas, a bit worse. Yes, absolutely. That is a bit worse. I don't have an index for worst ways to die, but worse.
If you'd have one.
That's what I was thinking about.
All right.
So let us just quickly run through these things at the top, because that's what would be flashing in your eyes all the time. But
quickly.
First of all, nice UI, not so cluttered as Paradox games tend to get. I mean, there's still a lot of stuff, but it's not like all over the place.
No,
it's not like there's a big thing over here or over here. It's just it's kind of okay-ish.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I do love the CK3 UI with your ruler always prominently displayed
Yeah,
in the lower corner. But this is definitely clean looking. Now I'm sure that this relatively clean looking UI still hides a lot of
many
complex
things.
stuff.
Yeah. So
Yes.
we've already visited the national focus
Focus tree.
trees, and
Yeah.
this is the political tab of your country. So here you can see the leader of your country, what the breakup of the political parties is, and also you have the laws and government, the research and production, and the military stuff. So this is basically all those empty spots where you could put in advisors or generals or people who just have bonuses. It's
Yeah.
kind of the same with the cabinet or the what you call it in Crusader Kings 3. It's kind of the same, not
The council.
completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the council. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's something we don't really touch until a little bit later on. Well, there's research in this game because I mean, if you want to win a war, you need to have better stuff than the enemy. And
Yeah.
then the box of Pandora opens because there's lots of stuff to click on.
Yes, I see.
So
It's a lot less complicated than it looks.
yeah, okay, but for the first time you look at this, you're like, oh my god, I really don't know what to click. Um, but there's lots of stuff to research. So you have industry, you have your engineering, you have plane stuff, boat stuff, and army stuff. That's basically it. Um,
It is. So what I'm gonna just really quickly comment on is that this is once again a very interesting way to do a tech tree, right? Because of course, people were not really like if you were thinking about like, hey, I want to make a tank. You were not gonna make a tank that was this particular because I guess you can research certain historical like makes historical
yeah,
versions of tanks, and of
yeah.
course that's not what would have happened. Like we want to research this tank. No, they would probably say like
We want a
you
tank
know
that can do this.
we
Design one, please.
exactly. And now you're working towards. In this case, I guess the epitome will be what is it, a P45 or something?
Yeah,
Anyway, that you're sort of working towards it, which is of course a very weird way because it's us looking back and saying
I
like,
think they had to do with that they wanted to simplify the system that existed in Hearts of Iron 3, since if I remember correctly, in that game you had domains of research that gave you random text if you instructed your research team to start working in that area. And here it's just, as you say, just single things that you can research and then they come out exactly as they are described.
yeah, which
yeah,
I understand. To me, it sounds more fascinating to do as you say, the Hearts of Iron 3 system. But of course, people also play this game because they wanna like deploy these
Yeah,
they
historical.
that was
like
the focus of
they want to research a tiger.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Since Hearts of Iron 3 was incredibly complicated, I've never managed to even play it properly.
Wow,
It's much more like looking at a spreadsheet than looking at an actual game.
good description of Paradox games in the beginning.
very good.
So we just did the research. Now we're coming to the second part, um, which is construction, which is basically building factories, and stuff. So to
And
produce,
stuff.
yeah, to produce arms and to produce tanks and anything other than that. Of course, you need
And
factories. I mean, the Second World War in particular was a war of production, as in
uh,
like of course it's always been said that the fact that the Soviets and the United States at some point in the war could just outproduce the Germans or the Axis on any given area was, I mean, it
yeah,
was a
they
part
could
of the
quite
fact they won the
literally.
war. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. They could quite literally make more stuff
yeah,
and send that stuff into battle. And also, of course, there was also a question of how many people were actually even in those
yeah,
countries.
yeah. But I mean,
But
like for
yeah,
every tank the Germans made the Soviets could make 40, for example, and Americans could make 20. Well, I mean, at some point the Germans would run out of tanks, and Americans and the Soviets would still have like thousands of tanks running around. Yeah, I mean,
yes,
so this is also part of this game, as in if you can't keep up production with the enemy, you'll just you'll lose because you don't have any weapons to fire anymore. I mean that's
yeah. So Mobius says this is the way of of let me quickly find it again. Sorry, this is the
Paradox
way with
games. Yeah,
Paradox games. First 100 hours is learning mechanics. Second 100 hours is learning the hidden mechanics. Play begins at hour 201. Yeah, it is very true.
yeah, but
And even there, the hidden mechanics can take much
yeah,
much longer because there's always to really understand why things click the way they click in these games is you need a PhD for it.
Yeah, but then
And you can understand it. Since, for Victoria 2, the original developers notoriously forgot how the economy system works. So people have been clamoring for years to get a sequel to Victoria 2 in the form of Victoria 3. And then the guy who was responsible for most of the development of Victoria 2 said, so we won't be able to bring the economy system back because we just don't know how it works. Complete mystery. It's a good thing that this game doesn't have one, and I know that some mods simulate an economy system through a totally different mechanic than the Victoria 2 one does, but man, is that system complicated.
That's so paradox. That's so paradox.
That is wonderful. That is
Some of the weird stuff happens too when you load a save. Everyone gets an economic crash for a couple of weeks. Just for no reason.
Okay, yeah, sure. But Jochem, I think we'll just build some military factories, right? I mean, that's the...
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean...
We're focusing on Ethiopia, so what we have in the beginning is fine. Although one thing that might be interesting to point out is that it now says to the left that we have 11 or 15 factories. That's the amount of civilian factories that we have. So if we build more of those, we'll be able to build more factories, and it kind of goes exponentially like that.
Yeah, so with civilian factories you can build stuff, so no more civilian factories you have, you quicker you can build stuff, and you can use the military factories where we get now to build equipment.
Okay, so civilian factories let you basically build more factories, and
they're also used for trade. So if you make a trade deal with a different country, you give them a couple of civilian factories in exchange for resources.
Yeah,
Sorry, is there also something, maybe you're going to get to that, as some sort of happiness rating? Do you need to keep your civil... I mean, we were all talking about unrest earlier, but...
There's a stability system, but I don't know if Italy makes a lot of use of it. I know a lot of mods do, and that is used to simulate happiness and unrest.
Yeah.
But in the base game, I don't think there's that much of a mechanic implemented for it.
So there is a stability, and it says, stability represents the people's support for the current government. High stability makes political changes easy to push through and helps the economy run smoothly. I think behind this stability number, there's probably some hidden mechanics, some hidden number crunching, if you indeed want to push Italy to, for example, a democratic country or a communist country. I think
not to disappoint you, but I don't think there is, since the crew mechanic functions just as an event chain, unless they change that in different DLCs. But in more complicated expansions on mods, they did make a system where, for example, if your stability drops below a certain number, you get a revolution or a coup or something. But here, if it's still the same system as it was in the base game, it's just strictly you appoint a minister, you get some events that lower your stability initially, and then you become a different ideology.
So I was about to say that I think they meant to do that, but they didn't, or they just probably forgot how it worked and they just didn't put it in or anything. But I think that's also like the hidden mechanics. There's some stuff in here which you don't see, but you know happens. And you're like, why does this happen, or why doesn't this happen? And it's so complicated sometimes. But we were at the military factories. I mean, we want guns. We don't really need tanks. We want planes. Oh, we might also want this one.
We have a deficit in support equipment, so we might need some more of those.
Yeah, I was looking as well. So we can. One more.
Fiat 626. It's a tiny little truck.
It's like a Fiat Cinquecento, but then bigger.
Oh yes.
So I never really play anything with Naval. So just delete those, just keep them and just see what happens.
The naval combat system is also something that I've never really been able to understand. I just make a bigger navy than everyone else, and then I usually win.
It's something I think they just never developed. Yeah.
There's this Paradox YouTuber, Women's Paradox, who made an entire video on the naval mechanics system, and it's I think 45 minutes long, and it's super complicated. But it might be worth checking out.
If you're really interested in this game and how everything works in this game, I mean, you never know.
It's kind of the army mechanics. It's just that the ships function differently from regular soldiers, and it's like the support equipment stuff and all of that doesn't translate directly to from the army combat to the naval combat. So
So another thing we can do is train new divisions. So you can just pick those like regular made divisions, or you can like design your own.
design your own
And this
division.
is what I think Jochem told in the beginning about the AI being predictable. There's a certain setup for your divisions, or there are multiple certain setups for divisions, which makes them the best way to play the game, or the best divisions you could have.
Yeah, yeah. Certain mix of
Yeah,
infantry
and
and
combat with and all kinds of stuff. This is where I actually just lost it a bit. I was like, well, this is too much min maxing for me. It's like
Well,
looking
the
at all
important
those
thing to keep in
numbers
mind
and
here is that the AI just uses the basic division templates all the time, so they can't dynamically customize their divisions.
yeah,
Which means that they are always predictable.
yeah, and
yeah.
I feel like if you change your divisions, of course, you get an upper hand over the AI. But the harder you play the game, so if you play the game on the hardest difficulty, the AI just gets massive bonuses you need to overcome before you can.
Yeah, but at some point you just have to start playing defensively because then it's impossible to
Yeah.
go on the offense if the bonuses are too high.
Yeah, which is kind of stupid, but that's a problem more games
It's
have.
still
Civ.
very typical. I mean, Civ does it too, right? If you're playing on deity, they just give the AI so many bonuses that you have
Yeah.
to play a very specific strategy in order to even compete.
Yeah, exactly. All right, if you just, by the way, joined us in the chat and you played this game, feel free to mix yourself up in the discussion, or if you have questions about this game, as I still have many of them.
many questions.
many. And I'm sure I will have even many more when we will start to hit the play button.
We haven't even touched the play button. No.
Yeah,
No,
we've been
exactly.
talking for almost half
This-
an hour. We haven't even started playing yet.
Yeah, this by the way, Jochem, this is the value way. Especially
Nothing
with
new
Paradox
here.
game.
Yeah.
I mean, and we didn't even do the whole thing where we went through all the basically the whole map with all the different countries that we could play and talk about their historical.
Yeah, maybe Aris can tell something in chat about some of the countries here.
Yes, but in a way we do have to do less of that because, of course, many people will know more. But if you have particular questions about Italy this time or any other that we may not know or we may know, just ask questions. It starts with the question. The answers we may be able to provide
Maybe.
or not, and then we will provide it through the power of Wikipedia and joint brain power. So,
So
you're
this-
now
yeah.
making a couple of more divisions, or what are you
No,
doing?
so
right
now these are the divisions we already have, and
Yeah.
this is something Art of Rome is different from other Paradox games as well. Is you have commanders, so an army can function without a commander, but like in the real world, they need generals. So you have an army, which is this one, Army 3, which is now stationed at the border with France, because France, damn those French. Well, they need a general. I mean, they need something to lead them. Or just pick one. But they also, because they're part of an army group, can have a field marshal. Well, we only have 2, 3. So these are basically
We could put the Bono in Africa because, as far as I remember, he is the governor of Italy and Eritrea.
yeah, but he's
So
not
he needs to,
he's not the
for,
best.
for historical reasons, he needs to lead our African army.
Yeah, but as we already we haven't started the play button yet. I hit the play button now, so history stops here. Of course, the top one is the better option for war because I mean he's the better field marshal. He also looks like he's been through some shit. The same goes for Emilio de Bono, who has like a great beard. But it doesn't.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We're also just gonna put those dudes over there. Don't really matter. But
Alright.
basically, what this lets you do is kind of lets you control, lets the AI control certain stuff. So, for example, you can make offensive lines. You can make battle lines into France. We can't declare war yet because we can't.
Wait. This is something very unfamiliar to me. What did you just do? You said I made a battle line into France.
Yeah. So this line here, you can see here, is a
Yeah.
battle plan. So this is what would happen if I declare war on France and let the armies attack. The
Yes.
AI plans out a way of attacking for you. So they like a real attack plan, like most
Yeah,
people do.
exactly.
Like
So what you now are basically simulating is like you're on the war table with your generals, and you would say, march this far into France. This is how you would do it. This battalion goes there, etc. And that's what we're sort of seeing.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's
Yeah,
just
so-
basically you swipe an arrow out, and that's to where you end up going to invade.
Yeah, so
into
so
France.
for like in contrast to Crusader Kings, where you have to move your armies around by hand,
Yeah,
I won't have to like move around all these divisions by one, because that's
yeah, yeah.
just too much pain in the ass. No one would
You
do
you
that. I
you
mean, you
can if you
could,
want to.
yeah. So
Okay, yeah.
you can min max, and especially when you're fighting certain wars, it's advisable to min max sometimes because AI is stupid sometimes, and they just do things you're like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Um, and also this planning gives you a bonus in combat. So having
Right, because you
plans, yeah,
it's good. It's good. Having plans is
is
good
good.
in war.
Having no plans is bad.
It is
Yes.
also something that you can specialize in, but that's something we'll get to later with the army doctrines. So you can
Yeah,
make your army totally specialized in long planning, and then you get a bigger planning bonus from waiting longer, and it also accumulates faster then.
but I think it's best if we just finally start like doing
Yeah,
something.
sure.
Uh,
So one other quick question before we finally start. What are your general stats? So what sort of what makes them good or bad? So I see that they have like a couple of different leader details. So what is the like the basically the swords
yeah.
drawn and then the what's the other ones?
So this is swords on attack. This
Yeah.
is defense. This is skill, and this
Attack
is
and protect.
yeah. So that basically attack, protect. I think this is planning. Yeah, planning and supplies. So again,
Ah, cool.
again, the Second World War was a war of supplies as well. When your divisions run out of supply, they don't have any food, they don't have any bullets, they don't have any fuel to like power their trucks. Well, they can't fight, so they'll be overrun, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because some generals were really, really good at, organizing supply lines. They may have not been strategical
Yeah,
masterminds in other ways, or like, but they were just really, really good at that.
yeah. So for
Yeah, that's
example,
nice.
this dude, this Ugo Cavaliero, Cavaliero. I don't know. My Italian is not that good. Um, he has a one for attack, one for defense, but has a two for planning and a three for logistics.
Hmm.
So he's pretty
Nice.
good at logistics, but he's not as good as attacking or defending, or at least he can do it. But like the bonuses he gets are less than the other generals, and also you can customize the I don't know how they're called, but these are like
Right.
traits. So each
Yeah,
general also has traits.
and
Uh,
they accumulate experience while commanding armies, and eventually you'll be able to convert that into a permanent perk for them. So, if I remember correctly, for example, if you're fighting in mountains a lot, they can get the mountaineer
yeah,
perk eventually, and they're twice as good as fighting in mountains as they were before.
Right.
yeah. So these are the earned traits, and the
Yeah, yeah.
general, yeah. But that's something which is like you could use them, but they're not like imperative.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, if you're min maxing, absolutely. Then, but right now it's not necessary. Okay, we've just drawn a battle line into
Yeah,
Ethiopia.
these dudes also need a.
Just put Bobo in there. If
This
you're not
one.
familiar with who he is, yeah,
He's
he
also
used to
got
be.
a very good name for an Italian dude, Italo. I mean,
So
Yeah,
who is this? Who is this person?
Um, I must admit that I'm kind of confusing my alternate history with my regular history here, so I need to refresh it real quick. But I know that he was
Okay,
quite
sure.
famous in the Italian High Command in World War II,
Mhm.
and he was, I think, governor of Libya.
Okay. So Big Ed Barnum says, I always drown in details and analysis when playing this. Yeah, and you know what? That is
not only you, not only you.
not only you, but that is. I mean, as I said, I have other Paradox games as a background here. I like that. I really like drowning. I can absolutely just love sitting there in Crusader Kings 2 and just flip through endless like characters just to see that one perfect combination of traits and alliances and everything. And I mean, it's just really, it can just be, that's how you make decisions, I think, as a leader as well, right? By drowning in details and at a certain point coming up with a plan of action. So yeah, that's what I like. I think these games for me are really very good at putting me in the flow, right? The Meek Hailes or whatever he is, this dude is called. Um, the idea of just being in a game and just endlessly being able to click. And it doesn't even have to go quick for me. I normally play my Paradox games at normal speed, so only when it gets really boring, I put them a bit higher.
Yeah, I always
Yeah.
go for the most of the time just 5, just blitz it.
Yeah.
So what will happen here is, I think, if I can recall correctly, we'll push here at the top because that's where we are strongest. But at the bottom, the probably Ethiopians will be a little bit better. Let's see why aren't you attacking dudes? Come on, today please.
Are we at war with them? Oh, we are.
Yeah, we
okay.
are. I've clicked the wrong one. I've clicked the France one. We're now invading France. No, just kidding. We can't.
Right. We
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no,
Yeah.
if you click on one of those combats, so we can explain what it's about.
Yeah, so basically the game will handle the combat itself. So now they're like doing this plan, so they'll attack this tile first, and then they'll just follow the arrows.
Oh, nice. And they are actually sending out airplanes.
Yeah, so I've also set it up. So airplanes are pretty vital as well. They give you a bonus in fighting as well.
Yeah, I guess especially against. And I see that right now Ethiopian that don't even have commanders. I mean, of course, that would not have been the case. They would have had commanders.
Yeah, but
I would imagine that the AI has at least one general, but maybe not then. Maybe
yeah, the AI is notorious at not assigning commanders. But basically, what you'd see here is like the battle stats. You kind of have those in Crusader Kings as well, of course. This is basically the score, which is also up here. And the estimation is it will take a lot of days to win. And these are like, there's all like different stats going on. And
since we are attacking them in mountains and they are defending in them, and as far as I know, we are also attacking them mountaineers. So those troops are specialized in defending in mountains.
Yeah.
So for example, this one,
if you attack with regular infantry in areas like this, it may seem like you're winning as it does now, but then the battle takes a month or 2 months, and then eventually you start losing. So it's
nice.
usually a better idea to attack with mountaineers here or go around or use paratroopers to.
I do like that. I do like that. So it's actually possible that you'll actually have a much larger force, but you just take the wrong territorial geographical approach.
Speaking of larger forces, if you exceed the combat weight of a certain fight, then all of the excess troops won't be able to assist you. So now we have, I think, 72 out of 120, which means that we are still good to go for this combat. But if we hadn't focused all of our troops on one specific mountain province, then we wouldn't have been able to push through since it's too many troops at once.
Yeah. So basically, the battlefield is too small for all our units, and you'd lose.
Yeah.
We've also encircled one of the Ethiopian troops in Somaliland.
That's what I did manually. So this is really important, as in encircling troops is the best way to actually kill the enemy or just defeat the enemy, because when you surround them, well, they can't have any supplies anymore, and slowly but surely they'll run out, and then they're just a walkover.
Yeah, and if they're encircled, they take 50% more damage as well. So that is really significant. You can win, especially against the Soviet Union, if you're playing as Germany. If you encircle half of their army, and you just push them into a corner and then keep beating on them until all of their supplies are gone, you can get easily up to 1 million casualties from one battle.
Yeah.
Every time we're streaming a Paradox game, Ares says, I'm reminded of why I don't play these games.
He's just salty, he doesn't know how to play this game.
So
we explained the decision to you, right?
Yeah, we can't do any yet. Yeah, we can do like the basic abandoned naval treaties, but never click those. But that's maybe something we can discuss next week when we play Spain. I mean, we could create the Roman Empire eventually in a long
realized Roman ambition size.
Yeah.
So every time I see a Paradox game, I am reminded why every single Paradox game almost that I touch, and this even goes beyond like the Clausewitz engine based games. I really like, and I have to be very careful with my time. So I think one thing is very interesting to me, and kind of annoying as well, the daylight cycle?
Yeah, I was
You
just
need to turn
thinking
it
if
off.
I can
Yeah.
like turn it off somewhere because it's
It's
really.
in the bottom right. It's not on the option screen. It's the little moon and sun. Let's see. Go to the bottom right.
Oh yeah,
I can't pull it, so you won't be able to see it. Yeah, there it is.
yeah. I always have to turn it off, but it's turned on
There's a
because
bunch
I'm on
more
a
options
different
there,
PC,
but
of
they're not
course.
all that important.
It's so
Does it have
annoying.
does it
Ah,
have tactical implications, day or night, or
It
not
does,
really?
if you're fighting at night, there's a combat penalty. I'm not sure how big because I don't really pay attention to that all that much, but I think it's sometime around
yeah,
20%.
and the
And you can
fighters,
mitigate it
the
too
fighters
in
have
the,
more accidents as well in night time,
yeah, that too.
which makes
Mhm.
But
sense
a lot of
because
those things are just statistical differences, so that's how they manage to make so many of these different intricacies. It's just that if you're fighting at night, it's 20% less of one given number that accounts for everything.
Yeah.
but basically this game is just waiting until you win.
It's
There's not a
putting
lot.
all the knowledge behind that arrow and then hoping that the arrow will guide you to victory.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess, I mean, in the long run, it is also really about being smart with this because, of course, now we're just playing, a one-off with Italy, um, uh, in a moment when there's, I mean, of course, because if you have to fight too many war or too many sort of conflicts at the same time, then you want things to wrap up quickly, right? Because you need those battalions somewhere else as well, right? Or is it really just, in any situation, just doing a battle plan and just
Um,
waiting?
in the base game, all of the conflicts are predetermined. And I mean, that's true for most of the mods and expansions as well. But here it's really that everything has been pre-planned by Paradox. So if you know exactly when you're going to be attacked and there's no deviations because of the ahistorical AI, then yeah, you can just predict every battle that happens.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
But that is because that's what the intention was, right? So they wanted to make a historical simulation of World War II that is as accurate as possible. And then it's up to the player and other players in the game to make it more arcadey and more sandbox-like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the the
Oh, well,
troubles we're now having
we
is
can encircle the entire Northern Army here by moving into the capital.
yeah, I was planning on doing that. Yeah, so like I pointed out at the beginning, the problem is that the lower part we don't really have enough troops there to like. There's more stuff we need to guard than troops we have.
Yeah. So, sorry, what is the stuff we need to guard? You're basically talking about borders here, or what?
Yeah,
What do you
so
mean?
these are our borders, so this is front line, and there's like it's divided up into provinces, just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
in Crusader Kings, I think. As
yeah,
you can see
absolutely.
here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 provinces bordering Ethiopia, but we only have 4 units, divisions. So that's less.
Basically, yeah, you're spread out, and because of course we can't really see the battle plan of Ethiopia, right? But
No, yeah,
I assume that is there like some sort of espionage in this game where you can find out the battle plan of Ethiopia, or how does
no,
that
but
work?
there is espionage where you could like have a buff, a bonus.
Nice.
Oh, and
Uh,
also keep in mind, we're playing really fair on Ethiopia right now since we're leaving our European army in Europe. I mean, if we wanted
yeah,
to, we could have just brought the entire European army into the campaign and then we would have won very quickly.
yeah. If you'd like, we could have 17 extra or even
Yeah, yeah,
more.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and you could easily do this right now anyway from a strategic perspective because we kind of know that we won't be attacked just yet in Europe, right?
Yeah, and we can't pass through the Suez Canal, which is also a thing.
No, that's
If we can't pass through the Suez Canal, they have to go all the way around. Uh, and it also be the possibility they can't pass the Gibraltar Strait, which means we could just never get our units there. Besides attacking the United Kingdom, which is maybe not the best idea. I mean,
no, right.
They implement naval access for passing through troops now. I'm honestly not sure. I mean, you're right in saying that if Britain doesn't allow it through the Suez Canal, we won't be able to go. But I'm not sure if they've implemented that our convoys, which aren't technically entering their territory, might not be able to just pass through.
I'm not really sure actually. I think they can't.
I hope they can't, but it's the base game, so oh, we won.
We won.
Okay.
Yes. I'm not a
Wait.
noob. I'm not a noob at this game. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's worth explaining why we won, since we invaded their capital, and their capital gives us the largest amount of
Yeah.
victory points out of their cities. And as soon as
Ah,
we've captured all of those victory points, they have to capitulate.
So that's basically the same as in many other. Come on, zoom out, you game. In basically the same as in many other Paradox games, certain tiles get a certain value.
Yeah.
For example, we just captured Addis Ababa, which is 23 victory points, which is I think all they have, ish.
They had
Uh,
Harare as well, but we had already captured that.
Yeah, but
So
that's something we can just like make demands. We just take Ethiopia, we're done, and it's now ours.
a treaty of Addis Ababa, or
Yeah.
basically, it's not so much of a treaty as telling them to just this is what it will be
Yeah.
like from now
So
on.
this is
So
something which is
real quick question to Jochem and maybe also to Omar. The history of this in reality. How did this particular colonial war develop for Italy?
I mean they
They
won, but
I mean, they won, of course, but the important part about this conflict is that Haile Selassie was exiled, the king of Ethiopia was exiled from his country and started traveling to the United Kingdom. And then he really became very involved with the United Nations and started pleading to them to end Italian colonialism. But then World War II sort of got in the way, so to speak, and made sure that none of these issues could be resolved through diplomacy. So it wasn't until after World War II when he was invited back in. And then the history of Ethiopia gets very complex in the post-war, a lot of flipping back and forth between great powers, a stint with communism. But
Yeah.
in short, the Ethiopians did lose,
Yeah.
and they lost their status as the one African country that resisted colonialism. But because World War II ended in 1945, they sort of regained their independence relatively quickly.
Yeah. Okay.
By Britain.
Nice. And as you say, I mean, of course, wars are never about one individual, but it is a very notable individual that therefore, Haile Selassie, that therefore left his home country and made an impact on the world scene, right?
Yeah, but not just on politicians. He also more or less became the head of his own religion.
Yes.
As Rastafarianism recognizes Haile Selassie as the.
Yeah, that's.
He never acknowledges himself, but it's a whole different story in of itself.
Yeah, for sure. That is, I have done a lot of work in Jamaica, so that is how I know most of Haile Selassie as the head of a religion. And although, yeah, as you say, he was never really, he was a bit bemused by that aspect of his personality. If I
I mean, he
understand
did declare
correctly.
himself heir to King Solomon, so he was already kind of a religious figure before he became the head of Rastafarianism.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And that's, of course, one of the things that I really like about Paradox games, and also here, right, is that if you want to just lose yourself in the history of all these nations, in this case nations, then there's so much to think about. Because then, you start to think about, the kingdom of Solomon and how deep in time that proud proud aspect of Ethiopia comes, and we just basically conquered it. We did this as Italy, right? Which has this.
Later, but Japan and Ethiopia in the 1920s and basically from the Meiji Restoration in Japan onwards until the First Italo-Ethiopian War, they had kind of a friendship going on since they were both the longest reigning monarchic dynasties in the world.
Yeah.
And Ethiopian intellectuals really looked to the Japanese and to their modernization as an example for their state. It was briefly discussed that Japan was going to support Ethiopia against Italy, but since the tripartite pact had been signed and Germany, Italy, and Japan entered into an alliance, they couldn't formally support one of Italy's enemies anymore. So they kind of fell through, and the whole movement disappeared of the Japanizers, the Ethiopian intellectuals who wanted to make Ethiopia more like Japan, basically.
Oh, nice, Jochem. Thanks for sharing that knowledge, because that's something that I never would have known. I never knew, and I never would have known without you telling me right now. Because this is one of those. I mean, it's not called a world war for nothing, right? There are so many facets to it, and so many interesting facets to it that I had not realized at all. Japan's strong ties with Ethiopia, right, and how that then also impacted on. Or was not eventually not impacted by them still making an alliance with Italy. Yeah, it's
I think that's the important thing to keep in mind, since that makes it my territory essentially. You could make an alternate history about it.
yeah, We were just joined, by the way, J.A. Pasco in chat. Hi, Jay. So
We're
sorry that
flying
I'm
over Europe now. You see?
we are flying over
Whee!
Europe. So sorry that I'm trumpeting into your ear, Jochem, but J.A. is or channel chatter stalwart. He's frequently, or if not frequently, always there for our live streams. And he's just joined. That's wonderful. Hi, Jay. We are playing as Italy in Hearts of Iron, and I'm learning a lot, both about how this game works, as well as the history of, right now, Africa and colonial enterprises for Italy and Africa. I have to say, I was trying to chat in your stream just now, but I wasn't able to. Somehow, Twitch wouldn't let me.
You haven't paid enough to Bezos.
Maybe is it followers only? Did you switch to this model, or subscribers only? Did you switch to this model? But anyway, so what have you been up to while we've been talking history?
Me, I've been pressing the play button at 4 or 5 speed. I've just like moved most of the Ethiopian army back to Europe.
Omar, can you click on the Ethiopian province for a second? I want to check something. Yeah, as you can see in the bottom left corner right now, Ethiopia is still resisting our imposition of colonialism on them.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
very hard.
just our
12%, but well, there you go. So now the compliance meter below the resistance meter starts building slowly until they have fully accepted Italian overlordship. And if we don't either imply harsher repression measures or create more compliance quickly, then the resistance meter starts filling up. I'm not sure if they can revolt back onto the map, so to speak, since I know that that's a possibility in certain mods. But it would just lead into them destroying all of our infrastructure and all of the factories out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and basically what this does, this happens. This is not colonialism or anything. This is just when you take over a country, this happens, and you can like influence it with the.
It is kind of colonialism. Omar.
Yeah, but as it's not colonialism in game, as in it's not because we're colonial powers of Ethiopia. It's just because we occupied Ethiopia and not because.
It's not a colonial province. I would say it's colonialism.
Yeah, but this happens with any province you occupy, not just because they're. That was my point.
Yeah, it's basically the hostile takeover of territory, which is not necessarily de facto so with colonialism, but it kind of is very often the case with colonialism. That this is when you do hostile takeover of territory, this is what you will get in this game.
Yeah.
And one quick question though, because interesting little mechanic there, or little probably big mechanic. Resistance, yes, I can see that. That's probably if that rises too much, they'll start destroying stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, they wouldn't in this case like become independent again, because that would kind of mess up the whole game. I would say, which wants to simulate closely World War II. But then, what is the compliance meter? What is it not just the other side of the same coin, or what does compliance do?
I think the compliance is also like a buff or debuff.
Basically, how productive they are going to be.
Value is the more recruitable population you get from the province. So if you have, it makes more sense in the, let's say, European context. So if we had taken over large areas of France, we would eventually be able to recruit collaborators there and then create a volunteer legion like they did in World War II in real life. So the more compliant you have, the more soldiers you can recruit from the territory and the more resources you get as well.
Yeah, okay. And resistance is just they will actively destroy and hamper things, and compliance is they will actually,
after a certain threshold, and then afterwards it gets organized, and then it turns into a full-blown rebellion. But as you say, in the base game, it doesn't turn Ethiopia back into an independent power that is at war with you again.
No.
You could simulate that, though. I know that there's mods that do that.
I mean, there's mods for everything, so.
Well, not everything.
Well, you say not everything, but we all know it's everything.
Isn't it Arendt's hypothesis that Germany's actions were colonialism directed to Europe internally? I haven't actually read her book yet. Yes, if I recall, that's one of her many. I mean, Hannah Arendt has a lot of
stuff,
a lot of points to make, a lot of stuff. She had a lot of stuff, but this is, I think, one of the main points is that she's making that yes, this was a colonizing of Europe itself, which I'm not super sure about, because then you're gonna paint a lot of things with the same brush, and I mean, then the whole idea of colonialism becomes a bit moot as a concept, I think. Then again, there's definitely aspects to what you would be doing within Europe, but yeah, it's a very interesting discussion to spin out, having not much to do with this game, right? But at the same time, like the base game.
It depends on how you look at it. I mean, if you're playing as Germany, you can, at least I think you can in the base game also establish collaboration governments. And
Yeah.
they,
Yeah.
with the resistance minds meter, you'll eventually be able to get volunteer legions from them and recruit them and indoctrinate them into your ideology and whatnot. So, but yeah, more to the point, I think I have a lot to say about this subject, but I don't want to derail the entire stream with it.
No, exactly. This becomes so. I mean, yeah, it becomes a very big discussion when you think, and I think we will have this discussion over the next couple of coming streams. We can leave a couple of things for later.
Yeah, I mean, we
I
should.
want to delve into specifically if we have a half an hour in a different stream.
Half an hour? Wow.
I'm all for this. I'm all for this.
As you say, it's a bit reductive to say that colonialism and the actions of Germany in World War II are so closely interlinked, since I've read a lot of theses about this, about the German perspective specifically, and I think there's a nuanced difference between the colonialist organizations that Germany absorbed after their fall to National Socialism, which existed before the German Empire and still had a lot of liberal aspects to them, and then the fanaticism and the totalitarian ideology of the Nazi Party and whatnot blended into this system while absorbing elements of the old system, but they were two separate things in of themselves.
I think this is going to be a very interesting thing to discuss more in depth, because I'm super interested in this as well. Right now I'm very much focused on other things, but I've studied colonialism, particularly in the Caribbean, excavated colonialism in the Caribbean myself. So it will be a very interesting discussion to plan for some of the 4 or 5 streams ahead of us to really get into this.
Once we get there, it's just that I should probably prepare some notes for it as well.
Yes, for sure.
My point a bit more structured.
All right. For now, I'm still struggling to understand what Omar is.
I'm just
is
speedrunning
doing.
it. No, I'm not.
Playing the game in the background. Well, we've defeated Ethiopia, so we've won.
I mean, we've won the game. We can just switch off now. We've won. No.
Right, but this would be a question. What is there to do now for Italy?
Waiting.
Waiting. It is waiting.
So this is where the focus tree comes in play. This is the place where you can get stuff to do. So for example, we can, after we've completed industrial effort or anything else, for example, we could do claims in Yugoslavia or befriend Yugoslavia. So we can choose which one.
That's an alternative history bit, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, if we could choose one of those, and I'm not sure which one they did, but I know they didn't really attack Yugoslavia until the 1940s. But for example, there's also the one where we can occupy Albania, which they did do. They just basically said to the king of Albania, well, if you don't subject to us, we'll just come in. And the king of Albania was like, yeah, what am I supposed to do now? No one is coming to help me. I'm out.
So,
bye.
Bye. Yeah, exactly.
But what we can do in the meantime is, I think that the Spanish Civil War is about to begin. So until 1939, we can help.
Yeah.
Well, what a sentence to say. We can start helping Franco.
No invasion in Greece. I think it's
that happens on later. I think
war with Greece. I see it all the way at the bottom. You can either choose to.
Italy still has to join the Pact of Steel, so they have to sign this friendship treaty with Germany, and then formally join their faction. You can also not do that, and that's the path to restoring the Roman Empire. But I really don't like that in a base game.
Yeah, and it's also something we'll never even touch. So.
So what? So can you also go wrong here? Can you also just be too late and sort of the whole thing starts without you as a player? It's like, oops,
that can happen. It could happen.
I think that the AI is set, especially with historical AI, focuses on to go down certain focuses at certain times. Yeah. So normally speaking, you'll automatically get invited into the access, for example.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but for
So
example, we could just not do the Yugoslavia ones, which would mean we wouldn't either have claims in Yugoslavia, or we wouldn't um, have the Albanian occupation. We wouldn't be able to join the Pact of Steel. We wouldn't have to, or we can't have like all these stuff if we just don't do these ones.
it's should be after Albania. No invasion. Yeah, it's absolutely after Albania.
Yeah.
Aris. So it is interesting though that these focus trees are so they are so sequential in the sense that, well, if you don't do this, then that other thing is
Yeah.
just not gonna happen.
I mean,
Yeah,
Hegel. um,
Yeah, right. But at the same time, if you're designing a game that who's close to what actually happened, then it makes sense to do it that way. I think because
yeah,
it's not necessarily a sandbox. It
but if
is
you look at like the Spanish trees, which are way more extensive than ours.
Yeah, the Anthony is one of the oldest trees in the game. I think it's been
Yeah.
unclaimed since the big game even.
So in the not the last DLC, but the one before that, the one I wrote about in the review, they completely overhauled the Spanish tree. So for example, this would be way smaller. It would be way more like our own Italian focus tree, which is like kind of small compared to the Spanish one. So I think maybe in future they'll also rework this Italian one because this is kind of small, especially compared to some of the other countries like the French, which also have kind of a massive tree.
Yeah.
So, Omar, I haven't actually seen the reworked Spanish Civil War yet. You said that there were 4 different factions now.
Yeah. So what would happen, which we'll see coming up soon, is that there will be. I think that always happens. That there will be another faction and then another faction. So we have the
Taken off from the central government, right?
So we have the Spanish Republic, which is basically Spain. But then the nationalist rose up.
The communists. And
Then
then
we'll have
those falling out and they split off.
yeah, sure, thanks. But then you also have the Carlists, so like the ones who want king back, which are also kind of in the civil war, but they'll split off from the nationalists. But we also have the anarchists, who'll split off in Barcelona, of course, because we all know Barcelona is anarchy or something.
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily that, I would say, but they have separatist tendencies for a while. Yes, for sure.
Go comrade. So, but now we can choose if we want to do the claims on Yugoslavia or the befriend Yugoslavia. Yeah, let's just go for.
And wait, for claim, right? We're gonna go for
yeah.
claim.
So we can either claim them,
yeah,
or we can
which
befriend
means
them.
we would have to attack them, right? If we claim them, or
Yeah.
or if does it simply mean now we get a claim, now it's ours?
No, so if you claim them, we get an easier way to attack them. As in, with claims you can declare war.
Yeah.
And also we can eventually, when we like conquer them, when we occupy them, you'll get a higher number of whatchamacallit, recruitable population.
No, but that's only if it's a core, right? So we now
Yeah,
we make claims.
but with the claim, I think the coring becomes easier.
Oh, does it? Okay, I wasn't sure
Yeah,
about that.
I think it works that way. And if you just befriend them, they'll slowly turn fascist. That's basically what happens.
And then they will join the General Alliance the
Yeah,
Axis Alliance.
so they could become fascist and then join the Axis when shit goes down, basically.
Yeah.
But for these two, it doesn't really matter. So what you can see when you have this logo, the brands are mutually exclusive. For example, when we choose Pact of Steel, we can't do these two. Because yeah, it's either. But with this one, we could have this one, but this doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, so you were gonna go for befriend because that's.
Yeah, I mean, I like friends.
You like friends. Okay. You're playing the wrong game for that.
I mean,
at the same time, you can also say that World War II was a war of friends and enemies. The Spanish Revolution is criminally underrepresented in games. Yeah, for sure, I would say so.
But they did do I think they did a pretty good job with the rework of the Spanish Revolution.
I remember being very impressed by reading what you wrote back then. So it would be fun to check that out at some point as well.
I think we'll do that probably next stream, maybe.
Great job in of itself, since as far as I remember, initially it was just that the Spanish Republic ceased to exist, and then half of the country went to Franco and the other half went to the anarchists, and that was it.
Yeah, so basically what they did now with the Spanish, maybe we'll also discuss this next week, because I think we'll be playing Spain. They flavored up this whole process of revolt in Spain and how they'd gain support and gain supplies in certain regions. So yeah, but we'll probably see that next week, and I think something will happen eventually here. And there's also Spain is something. It's an event which will always happen, but the time it happens is not predetermined. As in, it can happen in different stages in time for every playthrough. So, for example, with this playthrough, it happened somewhere in, I think it was May, but it can also happen at the end of 1936, which can be detrimental for your playthroughs because some, for example, this one is only possible to do if Spain is in a civil war.
Right. So, I mean, just really quickly, Omar, you just clicked away world news a couple of times already.
Yeah.
Can you maybe quickly stop with? I mean, I understand that you have probably seen this so many times already.
Stop clicking them away. Yeah, sure.
But for example, I thought that the last one was about 1936 Summer Olympics, right?
Yeah, which were going on by groups who were finished already, I think.
Yeah, exactly. They were. I think they're right, kind of now finished around this time, and and it's, of course, it's a hallmark event in in world history, specifically of this time. And does it have any mechanical impact, these sort of events, or is it just? I mean, you say no,
some do, but
it's nice though that they're in there. I think it's really nice for and I understand you've seen them so many times already, so you're not for you they're more like flow breaking rather than immersion enhancing. But it's nice. It's nice. So maybe next for my benefit, we can read the next one.
Yes. So in some mods, there's like events which I think are imperative to certain things happening. I think I can remember something in, I think it was Kaiserreich, where you could, like, if certain events triggered, you could do certain stuff, and then with that certain stuff, something would happen. But if the event wouldn't happen, then it would be just impossible.
For example, Kaiserreich has events that can happen for specific nations that then trigger new events for everyone else. And I think that the base game has a couple of those too. So, for example, the first atomic bomb that is ever used is a world event for everyone, and it's also determined on where it's used. So it then reads out, for example, if you just, let's say we will just drop it on ourselves and drop it on Rome, then it's the atomic bombing of Rome, and then the entire article is about how Italy is devastated now and how it's so shocking for the world community and whatnot. And that is all dynamic. That is something that they have set parameters for.
Yeah, but as it should be when you're making news, it kind of matters where it takes place, of course. So,
especially... I mean, it would have been very difficult to make a totally unique event for every single capital in the world.
Yeah.
But they have a few of them, I think. I think they have one for Washington and Berlin and Moscow.
As a previously said already, if you have things to ask in the chat, absolutely do so. Research finished.
Start helping out Franco, right? Send him some volunteers.
But I don't like Franco.
Oh, we have to get into our role.
No.
Unless sabotaging Mussolini's government, the three of us.
Exactly. It is a very painful role to play from my own personal political sensibilities.
I don't like him.
But so I mean, but you would do this as Mussolini, right?
I can't, but I would. But I can't yet.
You can't?
Not yet.
I can't send him anything.
It's still the rework is too.
Because they're still the junta.
Over the nationalist faction in the Spanish Civil War yet. It's still a general cabinet of the military. And then eventually Franco becomes the most prominent person in the group. At least I think so. Oh, did it go down the route to become Carlist?
Yeah, but it will still split off, I think.
Yeah, but then Franco splits off from them instead of the other way around.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Nice.
We'll find out.
We will see this, of course, next week as well, right?
Yeah, but that will, we will be in control, so we become anarchist and F shit up.
All right, so we will become anarchists. That
Just
is a good
because
promise.
I know Aris likes that when we become anarchists
Okay.
because then they can rage about how it's not anarchist.
Okay. Wait! Don't take it away.
No,
Oh,
not there's lots of things on screen
My
now.
God, what is this? What is this? There's
Yeah,
Italian Foreign Office in Yugoslavia. That is basically news letting the world know that we're now friends.
yeah.
yeah.
So okay,
This is more important, I think. The leadership purges in the Soviet Union, which always also happen, of course.
yeah,
Basically saying that Stalin has like killed most of the leadership in the
yeah,
Soviet Union.
exactly.
Well, actually, Omar, they don't always happen. As far as I remember, the point of divergence for all of Russia's alternate history content is how much you engage in the Great Purge. So, if you decide not to purge anyone, Andrei Vlasov, the leader of the collaborationist army who fought with the Germans against the Soviets in World War II, he rises up somewhere in the Caucasus, and then his faction has all the Democrats and fascists and other non-communists in it. If he wins the civil war, you can go down one of those different paths.
Yeah, but you'll never win the Civil War.
If you're a good player,
Yeah,
then
okay,
you can.
but the AI will always trigger the Great Purge, as far as I'm concerned. As far as I know, I mean, I think the AI will always go for the Great Purge.
Yes, but I don't know. I vaguely remember having the AI sometimes.
Yeah, they'll pop up
Become,
over here and then they'll be crushed. But I think that only happens after the Great Purge.
no, but if they don't purge enough, so you do get the news event then. But it's just that Stalin hasn't. It's also a strange mechanic too. I mean, there's so much to be said about was the Great Purge necessary and did they really need to kill that many people? But the game turns it into a game mechanic where it says that if you don't kill enough people, then they'll start an uprising against you. So Stalin is suddenly justified in doing what he did.
Yeah, mechanically it's being justified, or not necessarily mechanically, but strategically for a player, it is justified to engage in that
Yeah.
in those historical
You want
events.
to maintain the normal course of history, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that is of course. I mean, I think we should have maybe this larger discussion about Hearts of Iron, maybe at some other point, like the third thing, because that of course is, that's it's so hard because you know or you feel with all the sensibilities of now that, yeah, that's absolutely horribly and atrocious. And you know what, not only the sensibilities of now, but also the sensibility of anyone being subjected to that
Yeah.
great purge.
Or even
uh,
just practically speaking, if you want to ask yourself, was the Great Purge necessary? Then Paradox says yes, because otherwise Andrei
yeah,
Vlasov would have been up in
Yeah.
the Caucasus,
yeah,
and so
and that is, so I'm um making a game like this. Of course, now we're playing it, and that's already, you have to play it, you have to take these actions yourself, which is already hard. But making a game like this, I really wonder how you would, like, not necessarily morally, because that's a very heavy word to put on it right now. Because I'm not saying that making this mechanic is immoral in some sense. That's too difficult of a discussion. But it is you have to have a very particular understanding of history to put that mechanic in there in the way that it is, right? Like,
and
and also not of
um,
history, but also human nature, even.
Yeah.
I know the Paradox does have a rule set of their own to make sure that they do make some of these choices right. And I think that's a discussion in of itself, but
Oh,
there's more alternate history stuff happening.
so this is also very interesting. Dominions break with the crown. So
Okay.
this is alternate history because I didn't click the what you call it, historical focuses.
Yeah.
So basically, what happened is the
You,
the government has fallen because a certain person called Edward became king, and he wanted to marry a certain woman called Wallace Simpson, and the cabinet
mhm.
was like, no, you can't do that, and he was like, well, tough luck, I'm still doing it.
That is historical. That is historical, right?
No, he abdicated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry. No,
but
sorry. The
here he
fact that
didn't abdicate. So
exactly the fact that he married is historical. That part of, and then here he didn't abdicate. Okay. And what does that mean for
a lot of countries stepped out of the Commonwealth. Oh, let me just
wow.
try to
In
zoom
fact,
out.
the
So
entire ally is gone,
yeah,
isn't it?
so the entire allies are gone. So
So
Canada,
it's great news for us.
I mean, the allies are still there, but they're now called the Commonwealth of Nations. It's basically Canada, South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. and they're guaranteed by, of course, at
America.
least some of them are. But the glory of the British Empire, well, I mean, they're still pretty big, but they don't have Australia anymore or India. They just broke off.
Basically, what the game is telling us right now is that this particular marriage of Edward um, basically had a major, basically decolonization, forced decolonization impact on it, right? Or is it not necessarily
Well,
decolonization?
I think what happens here is that the fact that it's not really decolonization, as I think the people now in
The
control are still,
people from the UK, basically, but now
yeah, or
they're
people from like the UK top class, as in the people the UK put in control.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure how this. I really don't know this person, but I of course know John Curtin. He's also playable on Civ 6, of course. And Mackenzie King. Those are like they were there as well. But you just
Yeah.
yeah. What Pasco says now in chat, Dominions are white dominated, so they'd probably be British subjects just disagreeing with the fact that Edward became king and married someone else, and we're like just like
Yeah, okay. So it is not it is a decolonization sort of de facto, but not in spirit.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
And now it's basically waiting again. We're playing the waiting game. Yeah.
We're playing the winning game for sure.
Well, you missed our chance to support nationalist Spain as Mussolini, since
Oh
they're
yeah.
going on.
Are they gone?
Maybe the Francoist break off will still have a chance, but then they are a lot weaker than they are now.
Yeah, so the point is I can't send volunteers to them. I can. I can now. So I can send volunteer divisions to Spain. I can only send 3, so let me just quickly make an army of 3.
Well, only 3 is quite a lot. If we send all of our tank divisions, then we will be able to win this war single-handedly.
Very true. Let's do that.
Yeah, I think that's
So-
also something interesting to talk about, since the Spanish Civil War, at least among historians, is known of really being won by volunteers. So the Soviet Union sent a lot of volunteers to the communist side, and the Nazi Germany and Italy sent a lot of volunteers to Franco's side. And that is something that Paradox simulates quite well. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it happened now, but normally speaking, all of the countries in the world start supporting Assad in the Spanish Civil War, and then they get 1 to 3 divisions. Yeah, I think you saw it there. The Soviet Union is helping out the Republic.
So they have a
So
land
they-
lease and volunteers, yeah.
But
Yeah,
volunteers, of course, normally were really, I guess, were really volunteers, people that were really eager, or what were they? Because I honestly don't know.
I
When
mean,
we're talking,
So, I think George Orwell wrote a book about his time in Catalonia, right?
exactly, and George Orwell did. I mean, I know for sure.
Ernest Hemingway did as well.
Yes, exactly. I don't know if George Orwell did. I honestly
Yeah,
wouldn't
Orwell
know.
as well. Orwell fought with
Okay.
the communists in Spain.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think that's where he got the inspiration for 1984, since he
Right.
witnessed the Stalinists purging the anarchists on the side of the Spanish
Ah,
uprising.
But
So-
good news, Albania has yielded to our demands.
Oh, great.
Albanian authorities have agreed our demands, and King Zog has been forced to abdicate. From now on,
King-
until the end of time, Albania shall be Italian. And now Albania is Italian.
King Zog. I mean, this is a historical person, so there was actually a okay. I need to wiki crutch myself on. I need to see it.
Yeah, he was a historical person, of course.
Yeah, he's quite famous in Albania.
I know prohibitively little about Albania. I will readily admit.
I mean,
Zog,
yeah.
one of Albania.
Why am I setting my units there? I don't want my
I think he was also only king because he decided to revive his historic ethnic Albanian monarchy that wasn't actually in existence for hundreds of years. But I'm not entirely sure about that. So he basically said, like, let's think of a Dutch example. He just declared himself Julius Civilis II.
Sure. Nice, interesting. Oh my god, this already. I mean, that's why I love games like this. Is there's so much history, and this allows you to really delve into it because you just find out about this Zog, the first of Albania. Sounds like me. There's a Disenchantment, a Netflix series made by the original creator of The Simpsons. I think I'm not entirely sure, but I think the king is also called Zog or something along those
It
lines.
really sounds like a thought of me. Like, what? Zog, come on, guys.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
he's famous in Albania. That is something that I know for sure. He's famous in Albania for ending blood feuds since for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
In the normal justice system in Albania, they solve things by blood feuding. And then he declared that the authority of me as the king is more important than all these feuds, and then the amount of blood feuds dropped dramatically.
Ara says, watch Land and Freedom for perspective on what Stalinists did to anarchists in Spain, or Stalin, not Stalinists, but Stalin did to anarchists in Spain. You've talked to me about this movie before. I should watch it. Maybe even I should watch it before next Thursday. We're gonna delve into. We're gonna be Omer's gonna be on the wheels of this that particular.
Hopefully, we'll be able to do a proper multiplayer game then. So the plan that I had was that I will be playing as either the split off Republic or the Nationalists, and then we'll see who wins the Spanish Civil War in the end.
Yeah, but you'll always win. So.
I haven't played the base game in so long.
Yeah, but I neither have I.
It's still, I would still like to see this. It will be good to. I'll gladly just be a neutral observer. Do watch it, yes. All right, like a galactic emperor in a bad sci-fi movie, indeed. Yeah.
I mean, right?
Zog,
King
yes,
Zog.
for sure. King Zog. But some names are just real. So, what I was wondering about, we sent volunteers into Spain, but I mean, in this case, they weren't really volunteers. They were, we just literally battalions that we sent off there. I mean,
Yeah.
so
But I
in
think
that
that
sense,
did happen.
yeah, right. It's a bit like,
Volunteers usually. I mean, Germany.
I mean, they sent planes, so.
Yeah, they sent planes. But I was thinking about something else. I was thinking about the Spanish volunteers that fought for Germany, but not the German volunteers that went to Spain.
Yeah.
But it did happen like that. Yeah. So the Soviet Union just sent tons of men as so-called volunteers to the communists with full military equipment and training.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, wars today are still being fought in this sense. In Crimea, for example, a lot of the
Yeah.
Russian troops right now, they are also either mercenaries or volunteers.
Yeah, exactly. So
if you're getting actively involved in national politics.
yeah, no, that's of course, it's a good way, and I like how that is done in this game. Then that you can actually still do this, because of course this allows you to really have an impact on world politics without actively declaring wars, right? Without actively being part of a war.
So something really funny happened. We were invited to the Pact of Rome by the Kingdom of Hungary, because I mean, we all know Rome is in Hungary.
Yeah, we are being too slow with our focus tree, I think.
Yeah, so I think this is something which basically can trigger either before or after we do this one.
Yeah.
So we either can join the Pact of Rome or we can go without them. But yeah, I mean,
Can you really briefly? I'm sure that I've heard of what the Pact of Rome is at some point in my middle school career or whatever. But what was the Pact of Rome particularly?
I'm not sure. I need to wiki-crutch myself on that.
Okay. Shall I just wiki-crutch you? Yeah, you play. All right, and I'll because Pact of Rome, Hearts of 1924. It even says Treaty of Rome. Is that it?
I found the
Italy
Rome
and
Protocols, which were signed in 1934, which is the same thing because the picture is the same. Between Austria, Hungary, and Italy, it's basically, yeah. What does it say? Yeah, I don't really know. It's basically that they were working together, I guess.
They were basically working together. Okay, and
we've signed. So I mean,
right. Okay, and it's called the Pact of Rome, maybe because quite literally it is.
It was signed in Rome. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe it has a slightly different name in real world history. So in this case, the Rome Protocols. Okay, cool. I get it. So basically, we said we're now gonna work together with Hungary.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think our faction will be merged with Germany's when we sign the Pact of Steel. So then Hungary and Austria all join. I mean, Austria gets annexed by Germany, of course.
Yeah. So now we're allied with Austria, and Hungary. So what might happen, because we're playing on historical, is that Germany would trigger the Anschluss, which they
Mhm.
can, but Austria can refuse it, which means Germany and Austria would go to war, which means, in a very bad case, we could go to war with Germany in 1938-ish.
In a very heroic heroic case for Mussolini, all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's like,
One hell of a redemption arc for him, yes.
yes, that would be a redemption arc.
And you say it's a bad thing, but we are fighting them in mountains, so we would just be able to bunker down
No,
and
no,
destroy it.
we'll lose. We'll definitely lose because we can never.
That's
No.
that's what you. I would definitely be able to win.
Yeah, you would.
Oh, all right. Big
Okay,
words,
you,
big
you
words.
could if you paid attention for the second you start playing this game, which I haven't, of course, because
You know,
I never.
No,
do.
but it's not
some
just like that.
fights.
I would be able to walk you through with how to win quite easily, I think.
I mean,
If this happens, we
Ah,
may
see,
dig down.
It happened. It happened. We've got the anarchists. So
Okay.
basically, these are anarchists, the anarchist commune of Aragon, not
Aragon,
Aragon, but Aragon.
No, sure.
And which tree is that one? I think it's
I
this
see
one.
that they're actually not communists. That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's what I told you, Jochen, before. They're
Yeah,
not communists.
They would be since the base game only has 4.
Yeah,
So democratic, fascist.
but they're
communist.
non-aligned because they're not communist or
Well,
democratic or
This is quite interesting since I think Paradox borrowed something from the modern community here.
yeah.
The modders developed a system of making sub-ideologies for existing ideologies. So they replaced the icon, as you can see there next to the flag, which is now the symbol of anarchism. But they've used the regular non-aligned ideology and turned it into its own ideology just by changing the icon in the top there. But they're not classified as communists.
No,
since
because they're not. Yeah. So basically, what the non-aligned means is that they're not democratic, fascist, or communist. So non-aligned can mean anything from monarchist to, in this case, anarchists.
Yeah, I mean they're aligned with anarchists, right? They would
Yeah,
be part of an
yeah, but they're not
international-
aligned to one of the three large ideologies.
Then it means that every country in the world needs to have anarchism built in. So, for example, mods like Kaiserreich, they've made an ideology system of, I think, 12 ideologies, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
something like
And then
that.
every country in the world has a path for one of those 12 ideologies.
Wow.
But
That's a,
yeah,
That is the quality that you're supposed to have in the base game, but the base game only has 4. So
yeah.
yeah.
But basically, we'll probably also discuss it next week. But I think I also wrote about this in my review. It's really fun. It's interesting that in the end, the anarchists can become anarchism knows no borders, plant the seeds of revolution, and global defense council, which basically means that every country in the world will declare war on you because you denounce the way it works. So you're not a state, you denounce states because anarchists. So basically, all the countries in the world will declare war on you, and you can only win if you like conquer the entire world. There's no
Wow.
way you can't make peace with them. You just can't.
yeah, but
Wow.
you can't make peace in this game in general. I think that's a bit of a flaw in the system of Hearts of Iron 4, is that every war is a total war, unless it's completely scripted to end at some point.
Yeah. So there's no white peace-ish thingies, which is kind of
no.
weird. But I think the fact that they did this, as in it's actually a game-breaking thing, because it's not. They really had to think, but how we're going to do this, because it's breaking the game, as in it's not about the nation state. This whole game is about nation states. We're gonna put in a state which is not a nation or state as well. Like, why? But I really like that they did this, because first of all it made the Spanish Revolution a little bit more interesting to play, as in there were more options you could play with. Also, the outcome is a little bit less predictable.
I mean, we're gonna get into this next week as well,
of
right?
course, yeah.
For now, it is suffice to say that with our tank divisions, we are basically seem to be kicking quite a bit of ass.
Spanish
if I understand.
ass.
So if
Yeah.
we micromanage them correctly, we'll be able to win this war for the nationalists quite easily.
Yeah, but soon the cards will also rise up, and I think it depends. If we're really unlucky, we'll have our units surrounded. But yeah. because I think that's something which will always happen. You always have a four-legged fight in.
Okay,
Yeah.
but if we use our tanks to just directly push it to Barcelona as quickly as possible, then the anarchists should be out very quickly.
I mean, easier said than done.
Or can we now just not form the Pact of Steel anymore? I think that since we joined Hungary,
because we joined the
yeah, okay, so
but
that
I
means
think
we won't be able to join the Axis at all.
well we could. I think eventually they'll just invite us to the Axis with the entire
Pre unlocking
Pact
at
of Rome.
once.
Yeah. Yeah, sure, Bulgaria, sure.
So
That's very
basically, we locked ourselves out of out of the Pact
Oh,
of
Yeah,
Steel.
but basically, what I think what would happen is, what happens is when Germany takes over Austria, I think it will become an option for the countries which will now form the Pact of Steel to also join the Axis. I think that's what happens, but I'm not really sure. Maybe I'm surprised and it doesn't happen, and then
I mean, they're going to ask the faction leader. That's not us at the moment.
we are the faction leader. I think.
Are we? Are you sure? Is it not Hungary?
How do I see that one again?
I think it's Hungary since they are the ones who form the faction. Yeah, see, it is. Since it's their color, it's not our color.
Nice. So
There,
we're
there,
not
there,
really.
there was a way to see that one. Oh yeah, yeah, we're
No,
a
we just
member. Yeah.
so we are now all at the mercy of the Grand Admiral, who might join up with Germany. He might also.
Now
drag us
I
out
need a
war.
bit of I need a bit of historical contextualization. Who is in charge of Hungary at this point in time?
Miklos
I honestly
Horthy.
don't know.
He's
Okay,
the
I'm gonna wiki crutch myself on this.
Basically, bad dude.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there were few.
Good dudes
Okay.
at this time of
Yeah.
history, but still.
Okay. Hungarian admiral. Okay, so he was an admiral. An admiral.
An admiral
Did-
for a landlocked country.
Yes.
He was an admiral in Austria-Hungary, but then he decided to adopt this idea of being an admiral in his regentship, even though Hungary is landlocked.
Sorry, I'm laughing. This is a bad dude. I can already read right now. This is a bad dude, but
Yeah.
I have to laugh sometimes at bad dudes, simply because you're an admiral in a landlocked country.
You know what I always find really funny is that when the Nazis attacked Norway in 1940, here in so Oslo is in the fjord, right? So you can't really see it here in the fjord, but here, like at the beginning of the fjord or like halfway, there's like a fortress.
Yeah.
And the Germans had the great idea of just sailing in with cruisers, just sail directly into Oslo, capture the king, and it will all be over with. But this fortress was like, no way that's gonna happen. But this fortress was manned with some Norwegian dudes and guns made by the Austro-Hungarian Empire from like 1890 or something. And they literally sunk a German cruiser which was like newly commissioned for like a few weeks, the Blücher.
Oh, wow.
And they sunk like a state-of-the-art German cruiser with ancient naval guns with like
It's the civilization. You've got 25% chance to win.
yeah,
and you
but
win.
you won. But like the fact is, of course, like the naval gun shot like 12-inch shells or something, which are like huge as shells. Even
Yeah.
state-of-the-art cruiser would stop. But still, it also, or it was the no, even better. The guns were German, but the torpedoes those were Austro-Hungarian. So the guns were even German. That's just. I just have to giggle every time I hear that. I was like,
Yeah. I mean, a dark period in history, but there's light to be found in terms of. I mean, I'm just going to read a bit more about Horthy.
Of Norway in general is quite a funny story, if I at least as far as occupations go, so to speak. Since the person that they put in charge was the most unpopular collaborator in all of Europe, and his party.
Or just saying something.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Of course, all the collaborators were essentially just lackeys for foreign occupiers, so they were all widely unpopular. But Friedrich Quisling specifically turned his name into a term in Norwegian. So if you do a
Ooh.
Quisling, something that is just incredibly unpopular.
So
yeah, anyway, only 200 supporters in this movement, I think. And it was installed. The Germans just wanted to find someone who could take over the country in their stead. So he announced his takeover on the radio, but I think that just nobody really listened to it. So You just spent the entire time being super unpopular until the Allies liberated Norway.
I mean, makes sense. So two things happened. First of all, Hindenburg didn't crash, but had an incident.
Oh wow.
So it didn't
Okay.
explode,
Oh
but
yeah.
the leak of hydrogen was promptly repaired. So this is one of those events which will always happen in one way or the other. So either it explodes and it says, "Oh, the humanity," of course,
Yeah.
or it had an incident, or it just didn't happen. It was like a flight of Hindenburg goes successfully or something. Which
And
I think,
basically,
yeah,
I mean, this is just also flavor still, right? But basically, it ends the same way because everyone's like, well, that was a close call. Let's not do this again.
yeah,
And or if it's not a close call, it's a horrible
yeah.
flame sea. We're
So,
not gonna do this again.
so before they reworked the German tree, I think 2 DLCs ago, there was one option where you could reform the German Empire because one of the princesses was aboard the Hindenburg or something really vague. And if it didn't crash, you could reform the German Empire. If it crashed, she wouldn't have been there. So something like that, like, and
You need
having
to.
the
Oh,
ability.
I know what you're talking about, but that's because people wanted King William II's daughter, Victoria Louise, to become the Queen of Germany if the German Empire was restored, because yay female leaders. But since she was totally away from the line of succession, I think they made it so that all of the other heirs just die, and then
Yeah,
she's installed.
something like
that's
that.
what it
Yeah,
is. They all die in the Hindenburg incident, and then she is not on it, I think. So you got to do it
yeah,
the other way around.
yeah. But like for that to happen, this completely random event, you have no influence on what the outcome of this event is, and it only happens like in 1937. So you'd have to be playing the game for a year to have the RNG of 1 in 3 of this happening or not.
I mean, that's history for you.
Yeah, I mean it's funny, but like, eh. And also this
I,
happened.
You don't necessarily have to, right? You can just trigger the follow-up event in the console.
Yeah, of course you could, but then you can't have the achievements. And also now you have an in-game, or Germany has an or in-game focus tree of where you can just return the Kaiser,
oh yeah, okay.
which wasn't in the game back then. And also something happened that Poland and the Kingdom of Romania made well, at least they started working together. I think they'll eventually become allied to each other, so they'll have a faction.
Okay, that is
Also
interesting.
non-historical, because that's
Yeah, I
Yes.
think we should have turned on historical AI focuses for this.
yeah, we turned off, but I think it's fun because it shows how silly this game can get. Our tanks are kind of having slight issues breaking through the anarchist lines, but the anarchists, as you can see, I like that they're black, as in suggesting they have no allegiance,
Insignia
but
or
also
whatever.
because they're like, I think the uniforms are black. Also, you can
Yeah.
see here, if you look at those units, you have 2 bars, so you have the green one and the yellow one. The green one is the morale of the units or the organization, and the yellow one is the strength they have. So you
Mhm.
can see we're easily winning against troops which have no organization or no strength because, well, I mean, they're just some dudes with rifles running around.
Yeah, yeah.
So well organized armies win more often than not, which
Yeah,
makes sense.
makes
Yeah,
a
an
lot of sense.
organization also replenishes after every battle, but supply can decrease completely up until the point where the division just ceases to exist.
Yeah. Oh, something happened. Yeah. So this also happened.
There are the phalanges even. It's not even
Yeah.
Franco.
So some. Oh no. Oh no.
Oh, they did it. You're right.
What happened? Well, what happened is because our good dudes were lent out to nationalist Spain and not to either um, the Spanish Directory or to the Carlists. They were returned to us. So now
Yeah.
we have to decide which ones we want. Do we want to go with the Spanish Directory actual fascist dudes, or with Carlist Spain? I mean, or with
Let's
the
just wait
anarchists.
for to come back first of all.
Let's just play this out a little bit. Carlist uprising in Spain.
Just getting complicated.
Yeah, so this is what I meant with Spanish Civil War becoming a horse race or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there are certain things, several things we can happen, as in either Franco takes over or something else. But there's always a Cardist uprising, meaning that something happened here, and the Cardists were like, "Well, we don't want that. We want Carlos.
Yeah.
We want him back. Come on, we want a king." Um, and this is getting complicated indeed. And this is just, yeah, excuse my French, but a clusterfuck. It's really just what's happening here.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
So let's just do this one. Yeah, sure. So I think we need to decide if we either want to support the fascists or the Cardists. It seems that we have sent.
Germany was supporting them because they were supporting the United Front, but now they might switch, I think.
Yeah. There's another important decision. The provisional government of the Kingdom of Libya, after a long concerted effort to improve cooperation and compliance between occupation forces and local civilian authorities, we are now ready to put control of the Kingdom of Libya back into the hands of the local government. This new government is made up of sympathetic civilians and is ready to closely coordinate with us. This is also happening for the Kingdom of Greece because we occupy these islands here.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know this. But,
Yes,
okay.
so Rhodes.
Salaric Islands, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Dodecanese Islands.
Sorry.
Apparently was once Italian. I'm not sure, but probably they've got this right. So we can either have them create a collaboration government or just keep them under our control.
But wait, this is a generic event that fires when you have a certain amount of compliance, right? I don't think this is something historical, since why would Italy give Libya self-determination in the 1930s?
I think it's down to the compliance, but it will probably, if you just don't interact with it, it will happen at 80% compliance strength.
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying that I don't think they took into account that it can happen for African provinces with a country tag in them.
No, so this is something which I think hasn't, because they haven't reworked Italy yet. So this is something which would happen if you haven't reworked Italy yet.
It's interesting that this happens nonetheless, since I would imagine that, for example, if Britain gets 80% compliance in Egypt, that they would all of a sudden say, okay, Egypt, you're an independent country now.
Yeah, so that's what I said, like, because I think the UK has been reworked. That's something which doesn't happen because they have that context, that background story that wouldn't happen, and they just haven't done that for Italy yet. But sure.
Well, maybe we can do this now. I mean, let's just be uncharacteristically progressive.
Let's do it.
Italy,
Libya.
There's this very non-Libyan dude in control now, with the great Libyan name Ettore Bastico, which is of course very
clearly from a long line of Libyans.
And then the same
oil being
the same.
Yeah, now its own country then.
Yeah, so it's basically its own country, but we're still they're like they're a collaboration government of us.
Yeah.
And also the Dodecanese are now also called Italian Greece, ruled by Petros Papoulas.
Good evening, the Nautilus. Good evening.
Good evening.
Italian Greece. I don't know what.
Our good friend Aris sings
I think I hear Aris say. Yeah, I think he's shouting.
You can hear him screaming.
I think I can hear him screaming. Thanks for joining us, Nautilus, and thanks all of you for joining us. I'm having a good time just wrapping my head around what's going on here in Spain, but also just general in the game.
So I think the Germans will probably support these because they've pulled out of course, Cardis, and of course it will be the historical thing to do to like support these dudes.
Go for it. We won't think about.
We can't. We're not allowed. I'm not sure. So this is the shadow rules, the shadow mechanics Liam talked about. We're not allowed. Why is never explained.
I think it has to do with that Italy is so old now that they didn't take into account that the Spanish Civil War has been reworked. So it's now searching for the nationalist Spain tag, so the united front between the Carlists and the fascists. But since it's not around anymore, we can't help them.
That could actually be the case, but I'm not really sure.
If that's true, and if Carlist Spain still uses that old tag, then we should still be able to send them volunteers. But I'm not sure otherwise. No, them neither. Okay.
Is it not maybe because of the simple fact? Oh, now we can.
Can we?
I thought I thought that. Yeah, there we go.
No, so it's not
Oh,
green. As in, they would accept our volunteers,
oh
but we
right. Yeah,
can't.
sure. Is it not because Hungary is basically our boss now at the moment?
That might be true. That would be kind of funny, but yeah, maybe our
That
faction
that
doesn't
could
allow
that could
volunteers
actually be
anymore.
Who's
true.
who right now? We're all just Omar. Omar's playing. And Omar's playing Benito Mussolini, and we're scratching our heads about about the Spain Civil War and why we cannot interfere with it anymore. But okay, yeah, that could be the case.
I, could be. I really, I honestly don't know.
I
I'm
mean,
just gonna click a random dude here. Infantry specialist, you. Oh no, poor Amelia.
Oh, that is a
She
random
has
event that
disappeared.
went the way of history.
Yeah, so this is another event which could trigger. She also could be that she's the first woman to fly across the Atlantic, or the first woman to fly across the Pacific.
Pacific, yeah, exactly. Which she wasn't in the end, but
No.
yeah. Okay. I mean, I really like these events. So if I understand correctly, these events like this, but then also with choice in it, that's actually what you're going to be developing for the mod, right, Jochem?
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about it all that much yet, and I honestly would prefer to keep it.
Yeah, absolutely. For later.
It's a real trap to fall into as a mod developer to start teasing your mod all the time and then not work on it at all.
Yeah, true.
I
So
mean,
no,
yeah.
Once we get to Kaiser, I would be able to explain it a bit more as well, since the base game uses events and world news and whatnot a bit, but mods delve into that much deeper. So Kaiser is already a really good example of what you can do with all of these different events bouncing off of each other and then creating narratives in of themselves.
Yeah, so if you're now watching the stream, you're like Kaiserreich mod what? We had a talk on that in Tipco, because Jakub Schindler, I think, he talked about Kaiserreich mod. So if you're really interested, I think Angus can maybe drop the link in.
I will absolutely. I will absolutely do that. And we will do things with that as well. Well, particularly Jochem will do things with that as well, right? So, yeah, and I Ara says he cannot stand Mussolini's face.
Which is understandable.
He had a horrible face. He just had a horrible face. For
I mean,
sure.
we could become communist immediately, but then most of the game would have been broken since the base game doesn't account for that happening. At least not if you are playing a country with such an old focus tree.
Yeah, so I think in future there will be an Italian focus tree where you could actually turn fascist, and you could kick out this.
Where you
Arrogant.
can literally play as Gramsci.
This just a,
I mean, you know what it is, right? A famous socialist author from Italy.
what? Who? Oh, Gramsci. Yeah, of course. Poor dude.
Oh yeah.
Why can't I? Yeah, it's literally because I'm Hungary. Hungary is the faction leader, but we're almost there. We can overtake them as faction leaders if you want. When it's
Yes,
at
do
100.
that. Make that happen.
I don't know how this happens. Since does Hungary even have a focus tree? I mean, a custom focus tree.
Well,
Oh,
they have a bigger one than we do, so
Oh wow.
yeah.
Oh, and it's the one where you can recreate Austria-Hungary, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen this on YouTube.
I think Austria also has that one. Austria also has an option to reform.
No, I don't think
no.
I think it's
Austria
Hungary.
has the. This is the general focus tree. So this is the basic, which every country doesn't have a specific focus tree gets, which basically just you can either turn everything.
Yeah, it's interesting to look at this focus tree too, since it betrays the design philosophy of Hearts of Iron 4 when it first released, especially the political tree, since it has a button to go communist, a button to go fascist.
Yeah.
And back then it was just focused on making sure that players with no context in history and just an interest in a World War II sandbox could do whatever they wanted.
Let me just move your faces out of the way so people can see.
They slowly changed that over time, so...
And my face as well.
Oh, am I out of the way now?
Yeah, we're all out of the way. So basically, indeed, what Jochen was saying, this is the basic focus tree, and every country would get this one, and it would be just basically you could either turn totalitarian and become either fascist or communist, or become democratic. And or non-aligned, which would be anything else but mostly monarchistic. So you could choose what you want to do, but it's not, as you can see, it's not really worked out, and it's just not really.
By the way, another interesting fact from history: the Nautilus says that, ironically enough, when Mussolini was about to be executed, he asked to be not shot in the face, which is, I mean, yeah, I think that that is an interesting, interesting fact from history. I can sort of understand that from his perspective, he didn't want to be shot at all. But and
Please don't shoot me. I mean,
but my God.
oh, but what happened? Oh, they
I,
did, they did, they
I
did
hope
shoot him.
they didn't comply exactly.
Well, I don't think they shot him in the face, but they did mess up his face pretty good. Yeah.
I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. But yeah, it's interesting. And when we're talking about the design philosophy of Hearts of Iron 4, and then, but of course, another part of the design philosophy of Paradox games, especially these ones, is to sell mods, right? So
Yeah, or at least to leave the big fixes to modders and then do the bare minimum to keep the game running.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, sorry, I mean, but also to sell DLC. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. To sell to also allow modders to take it to do. That's another design decision. That's just really cool. And then the other a bit more contentious is, of course, to ever sort of make it ever more complex and historical by basically selling DLC to people, right?
Just as a quick in between, I think Omar's already pointing it out, but one of the wackiest things in the base game is happening right now. Edward VIII is seizing power and becoming an absolutist king.
Yeah. So basically, I'll read out the text because I don't think you can really
so
read
much
it.
weird stuff. It's
So
I don't think we have time for that tonight, but yeah.
following the royal marriage between King Edward VIII and Wallis Simpson, the king has now appointed the leaders of the newly formed pro-monarchist King's Party, Winston Churchill, Oswald Mosley, who is of course known as the fascist dude, and David Lloyd George, to form a new government after the nation's extended period without one. So they have been without a government for a year. I mean,
because he said, like, if you're not going to give me the marriage that I want, then
yeah,
with no government.
tough luck. Yeah. Supporters of Edward VIII applaud the formation of a loyal government, but critics point out that the new government is so supportive of the king's wishes that they might as well consider the king to be de facto an absolute monarch.
Wow. And so Winston Churchill, together with Oswald Mosley, is
And
in
David
one of.
Lloyd George, which was of
Wow.
course the one who did the who was
So
prime minister
not
during.
correctly, from now the new nation of Great Britain can now start reconquering the old dominions, which
Yeah.
leads ultimately, if you play through the entirety to the end, to the reconquest of America, and then the appointment of Wallis Simpson as Queen Regent of America.
Yeah. So basically,
So
indeed, what
like if you don't want me to be married to the woman, I'll just take over her country and install her there as queen.
Yeah, so
Wow.
basically, indeed, we now have God Save the King, and if they do all this, they can bring the dominions back into the fold, reclaim the jewel and the crown, and unite the Anglosphere.
So this is kind of what I mean with the base game. It's funny that they do this, but they throw historical accuracy and immersion completely out of the window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not not yeah, well, but I'd say, yeah, we will have to what if counterfactual talk a little bit later. But I mean, to me that also works. This is to me a big draw now, for this game, to see how things would have to. I mean, in this case, yeah, it's also a bit weird still.
How things would have unfolded. It's just a cartoonish version of history that they specifically made to be funny.
Yeah, I don't know if that's one point here. So I think the major issue with any counterfactual history of this period is that nobody in their right minds alive nowadays would want to have unfolded in completely the other way. So with Axis taking power across basically the world. So that it in that sense it's not a fun thing to play because it's just, you know, it clearly goes so much against what we desire the world to be.
Right. So, for example, there were rumors that Edward VIII was planning on making a peace deal with Germany on several occasions.
Yeah.
So, if you want to look into primary sources that substantiate this idea and then work into a scenario where you can realistically say this is what would have happened,
Yeah.
then, in my opinion, you have something of far greater quality than just someone going and saying, "Hey, let's just put Wallis Simpson as Queen Regent of America because that would get people to watch videos about it on YouTube."
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's a very good point that you're making. It is there's a sort of a historically interesting and still fun way to do it, probably, and that is exactly the way that you're describing right now. And then there's the wacky way to do it, which is
Yeah,
to hyper focus on this one event, and then I mean, it's a bit the fallacy that we always say when it comes to World War One, that one shooting that would have changed the world, but we sort of know that there was so much momentum towards, in that case, World War One, that it would have happened in some way or shape or form anyway, very likely.
Yeah.
Um, and that's yeah. So it's sort of event-driven history, which of course is sort of part of Paradox games, is a wacky history. Almost yeah, absolutely good point, Jochen. Very interesting. And that's of course where modders once again come in. We won't talk about modding too much yet, but that's where modders do come in to provide this detail and interesting aspects to other paths that could have been taken. All right. What is the status of our
well,
own
I'm
Italy at the moment?
1938, so we have one more year to go before World War II happens, but I don't think we'll be able to reach that tonight.
Yeah, so I don't think even the Germans have like done any of this ones.
No, they remilitarized the Rhineland, but then afterwards nothing
Oh
happened
yeah.
since we're in our own faction and everyone else doing their own thing.
Yeah, so when we have 200 political power, we can take over the faction. But I mean, yeah.
I just open up the console real quick and give yourself 70 political power. We might as well.
Yeah, exactly. We're not
I've
gonna.
never used the console. How do we do it? Probably.
All right.
Filter and then space. Yeah, there you go.
GA, thanks for joining.
Data type PP70.
What?
P and another P. And
And
then
then
space P.
PP and then space and then.
70, since we want all 60 now.
Ah, wow.
There you go. And now you just close the console the same way you opened it.
Take over faction. Yes, please.
Perfect.
This is a useful modding tool, I guess.
Yeah.
As well.
What?
Okay, so then this has to be because it's not the correct tag. That the base Italy focus tree is
Yeah,
checking
but the
for.
Germans can.
Yeah, I think they were reworked. I think.
But we can send a land lease, so that's weird.
So we can do even more then, but I think we should just leave it the way it is.
Can we just win with one with one console, like a God Command or something?
Well, that's several, but no. I mean, we would have to tag switch to a Spanish Civil War contender and then just annex the rest of the console.
Yeah.
But, I mean, would we?
Seeing as though it's also 11:30. I think let me just
We've done what we were setting out to do, right? We've explained a bit of the
Yeah.
gameplay, I guess.
let me just quickly switch over to the our face cam.
Mhm.
Also turn off the damn music of this game.
Which, by the way, we couldn't hear.
Yeah, I know it's Discord, but yeah, it's just
I also think on the stream it wasn't really.
yeah.
noticeable.
I turn it really low because it's such annoying music.
Oh yeah,
It's like this music, but like the first time you hear it, it's like, oh, this is cool, but then like it repeats every.
man, I've been through all of my hundreds of hours of modding. I've grown to hate that main theme so much.
Yeah,
It's always the same. It just gets through your head after the first 200
yeah.
hours.
So
or something.
probably for next week, I'll just turn off the music and have the game sounds on, but just the music will just be gone because it's annoying.
Right. Thanks for introducing this to me. I think I so clearly I wouldn't be able to play the game just yet by
No,
myself.
yeah, no. It took me several hundred hours as well. So
Yeah, but I'm getting the core elements in place here, and also the core game design decisions in how they were, at least initially, going about simulating like World War II, this sort of this short period in our history. So really really interesting, and yeah, I can see how you have spent so many hours with this game.
yeah, I mean, it can be really fun.
Yeah, it's yeah, it can be really interesting. At the same time, I do sort of still feel Uh, I don't know if I could. I still wouldn't know if I could play this game and have fun with it because it feels so
Yeah.
so so at the same time I'm saying that, but I can also have fun with Europa Universalis, which is also in many ways a
If you sit down and start to play it for a longer period of time, then at some point it starts to click and it really becomes more fun.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
No, but
more
I'm not,
historically
not,
speaking, I think. Yeah.
historically speaking, from the simple brutality and horrible nature of this conflict. But at the same time, as I said, I can have fun. Um, and I'm not, one thing I think is to point out is when you're having fun with a game doesn't mean that you're, supporting the ideologies of, for example, Mussolini.
Of
Um,
course, that is something that we really need to say. I think that even in games like this, you don't necessarily have to distance yourself from what's happening, but you have to realize that it's a simulation and above all something that isn't true to history completely. So you don't have to, at least in my opinion, you don't necessarily have to constantly justify what you're doing.
No, exactly. But I wonder. So I'm not saying that people should, but I wonder if I would be able to do that with this game. I really wonder if I would be able to
Yeah.
do that. Because as I said, I can do it with Europa Universalis or with going on a crusade in Crusader Kings.
Yeah,
But I don't.
yeah, it's just the distance bigger. I think um, I featured an um, an article once in the bulletin. I think twice already, which was about exactly this. Like lots of games, Hearts of Iron as well, they gloss over certain facts about Germans, most likely Nazis. I mean, we don't really see the things the Nazis did in the game. The same goes for the fascists in Italy. We only see the militaristic,
Right?
the
Paradox
national.
want to depict those things because they wouldn't be able to sell their game in Germany anymore, first of all. And
Yeah, but I'm
I think
talking about more than just the swastika, of course. I'm talking about like the Holocaust, which is just not in, it just even isn't even mentioned. Which is of course, and I think that the argument of the article I think was in Kotaku. It's probably in the bulletin somewhere. You can look it back. It's like a few months ago. It was like games should stop pretending that the Nazis were or just the Germans were like, oh yeah, they were just such quick guys. Yeah, we should just they should.
yeah, but I honestly I've read that article too, and I think that they are forgetting what Paradox is trying to do, which is to make sure that the subject doesn't become part of their games, since it's impossible to portray it in such a way that it satisfies. Well, I wouldn't say it satisfies everyone. I don't think that's the right way to put it, but just that it's in a dignified way that it's there. Since it's
Yeah,
now with the new compliance mechanic, I think that they can incorporate it a bit better. But they also in the modding community they don't allow you to portray atrocities in mods at all.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean that makes sense, but I think it's a very interesting discussion. As in one way you can say, but we don't want to portray this stuff because it's just bad, and we just don't want it here, and also it just doesn't sell. I mean that's of course the downside of video games; they need to be sold. So if you like put in the Holocaust, you just know it's not gonna sell because you can't sell it in most countries. But on the other hand, it also just glosses over the fact that it actually happened, and we're like playing Germany or Italy without just recognizing that they were really bad. I mean, we know that they were bad, and we discussed this now. But there's also a lot of people who might not know the ins and outs of those things, especially if we talk about Italy. I think a lot less people know exactly what happened in Italy and how bad the fascists were, because of
You know,
course,
that is of course absolutely true. The same goes for how they portray the Second Italo-Abyssinian War. They don't do anything with that at all.
yeah,
And Italy committed a lot of war crimes in that war. They were condemned by the international community for the way that they behaved. And I think that 7% of Ethiopia's population over the course of the first and second conflict perished in both of those wars. 7%, that's a lot.
Well,
So yeah,
so
they don't portray the well-known conflicts the way they should maybe, but they don't portray lesser-known conflict either. So where do you draw the line? What I'm trying to say.
if so, Ares is saying in the chat right now, if they can't make it work in a sensitive and proper way, then there's also an argument for simply not doing the game in
yeah,
the first place. As in, there's a choice that a company developer is making there to not include it, maybe out of fear for effing it up, maybe out of respect, maybe out of marketing issues, but whatever it is, the experience produced is one that does not include a historical reality. And that can shift the perspective of certain regimes or events. Yeah, that sort of sums up, I think, and I'm not exactly as Ara says, there's an argument there for simply not doing a game like
Yeah.
Hearts of Iron 4.
I
But
can't really defend the game on that, I think. I, of course, understand completely where you guys are coming from, but it's just that I want to at least put the arguments that Paradox has put on the table here, and then see how they hold up against it.
yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, I think this is something we can discuss a bit more. And I would say that I'm not necessarily saying that this game shouldn't be here, because as I say, I think I also recognize my own hypocrisy in a way
Yeah.
when I say I want to play the Crusades in Crusader Kings 3. And I want to play, the Netherlands, and the occupation of Taiwan, for example. I want to do that sort of stuff, but I don't want to play Hearts of Iron 4 because, and I mean, not that I'm saying that it's exactly equivalent across all borders, but I mean, there's a lot of horrible
Bad
stuff
shit,
in
yeah.
history.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Basically,
I think
yeah.
interesting discussion to have more.
Yeah,
I think.
maybe closing off point, I think that there are a couple of mods who've made an attempt to do this better, and maybe once we start exploring those on stream, they'll change your mind.
Yes, let's do that. I'm looking forward to have my mind be changed, or at least to have this discussion in full with other arguments and other perspectives to be brought there as well. Thanks you both
Yeah.
for teaching me a lot about the game, but also about a lot of the details that I learned. I really learned a lot about listening to you, but also like thinking of quickly googling stuff about this period and the actors involved. So really, that part of it, I think, if you do Google and if you do your real historical research, then it is a very good game and a very interesting game. So thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. We'll be back next week, I think. So on Tuesday we'll still have Vampire, right, Angus? Am I right to
Yes,
say?
exactly.
Yeah.
Tuesday we'll be playing Vampire, another morally interesting story, but then that's the whole point of it.
And next week Thursday we'll be back with some more Hearts of Iron 4, which we'll probably spend with playing as Spain, because as
Yeah,
we
hopefully,
saw today,
I'm really itching to flex my muscles in the game again, and especially in the base game.
would be fun. Would be fun. Would be fun. I'll leave this to the two of you to decide. But yes. Anyway, I'll be here as an observer again. That I can promise you.
yeah. So that's it. I think that will be all for today. So stay happy, stay healthy, and I will now start our wonderful outro without the mistake in spelling.
Without a
So
typo.
yeah, we just if you spot it, you will get a applause or something.